Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is a round 9 game from the 2016 Tata Steel Tournament, Masters section, between Wei Yi, playing on the white end, and David Navara. Let's have a look. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop B5, the Ruy Lopez, Knight F6, Berlin defense, and now we have this D3 system. Watching over E4, Bishop C5, and now Bishop takes Knight, D takes. So this is, how are things looking here? We have a Bishop for Knight exchange. White has a nice structure. White has a nice harmony between their structure and remaining bishop. They work well together. Black, on the other hand, has that trump, has that positive in that of the bishop pair. And, okay, black also has a slightly deficient queenside structure. Now, something I want to draw your attention to is this bishop for knight capture. Notice when it occurs. Bishop takes knight is played only after the bishop has made a move to c5. Why is this the case? Why is it the case that white waits to capture on c6? Why does white wait for black to make a bishop move before taking this knight? Well, let's consider. Suppose we take the knight at the very first moment we can. Move 4. After d takes in d3, this bishop can now play to d6. One move to get to the d6 square, which is a better square than c5. For two reasons, at least. One, reinforces e5, which has pressure on it, which may have additional pressure placed on it. And two, and maybe more importantly, it stays out of the c-pawn's way. The c-pawn is, the c-pawn would like to advance so that black can strengthen their grip over d4. And d4 is a desirable square for the knight. This is a wonderful outpost for the knight. Granted, it will take some time for the knight to make use of that square, but when he hits, this is not something that white can ignore. Rarely can you ignore a piece in your position, especially a knight in your position and in the center. So the short story here is that with a little bit of patience on white's part with this bishop for knight capture, white makes black work a little bit harder for the bishop to get to d6. It will have to take him 2 moves to get there instead of just 1. Knight b to d2. Black castles. This pawn, by the way, cannot be taken because of queen to d4. Double attack against f2 and e5. Knight c4. Now this is a threat. Now it's defended with still a similar tactic if white is capturing on e5. Also, this knight d7 move, yes, for the moment it's there to watch over e7, but also it is a step in the direction of repositioning the knight. Maybe b8 and c6, maybe f8 and e6. And from both the c6 and e6 squares, they eye up what square? d4. Queen to e2. I like this move. It's flexible. It doesn't show white's hand. Where's the king going? King side? Queen side? We don't know. We're keeping black guessing. Also, it's watching over f2, which means this is now a threat, because queen to d4 would not be hitting at 2 vulnerable points anymore. So rook e8 now defends. Bishop d2, still not showing his hand. Queen side, king side, both are viable options. I mean, the queen side structure, all pawns still on their home square, perfectly reasonable. Also, this is a move that I questioned some. I wondered, why not go to e3? I wondered this because I'm familiar in the game with this idea where when your opponent has the bishop pair, it's usually a good strategy to welcome a bishop exchange. So why not do that here? Well, I believe the main reason to avoid this dark square bishop exchange is so that white can keep a watchful eye over the f4 square with a piece. This knight, for when he arrives on e6, he would be a tremendous piece if he gets to f4. You really can't tolerate a knight on the f4 square. d4 at least is watched over by this knight, so it's f4 that could turn a bit sensitive if the dark square bishops are exchanged. If you think that g3 is satisfactory in defending f4, well, g3 is not without its issues, because it weakens light squares. And guess who's out? And guess who is without their light square bishop? White. And guess who might take advantage of those light squares? Black's light square bishop. g4, bishop to h3. So, avoiding the dark square bishop exchange to keep a watchful eye over f4. You might want to take it one step further. You might go to d2 and reason, well, you're keeping the e3 square opened so that the knight from c4 can reposition e3 and then to f5. Couple ideas, just sharing those. Okay, bishop d6. And now we have h4. So this is a tell here. This is, with this h4 move, white is basically saying, okay, I'm looking to attack you. I will castle queenside, and I'm going to try to grab some space on the king side and, game on. It's race to attack one another's king. So at this moment here, move 10, Navara played c5. Well, let me just back up for a moment. This position right here is identical to the round 9 game, the same round as this one, in the same tournament, between Fabiano Caruana and Sergei Karyakin. They were playing this exact, they had the same exact position on their board. This is where things are different. Navara played c5, whereas Karyakin played knight to f8. I'd like to just bring this game up for a moment here and play through just a few moves after move 10, just to give you a feel. So this is, again, identical position, Caruana versus Karyakin. Karyakin played knight to f8, and after h5, the knight played into e6. We had c5, and just playing out a few more, I just want to give you a general feel for what happened here. We had a bishop for knight exchange, and after takes here, we had h6. Just making a couple of brief comments about this game here. What do we have? We have a kingside position that is locked. A static structure. Things will not break open on the kingside, which means that black will be able to put some pressure on the queenside. It will buy black some time to make play on the queen side of the board, where the white king is. Now, going back to our game here, going to move 10, let's see how things are a little bit different. What was Navara's approach? We saw we had a little bit of an idea for how Karyakin approached things. How are things different here? Well, c5. c5 was eventually played by Karyakin, so nothing different there. After h5 in this game, we have the move h6. So this right here is already a big difference, because this weakens g6. This is making the f5 square, as soon as h6 is played, this is making the f5 square a square that the knight can jump into. There won't be any g6. If you're playing h6, there won't be g6 ever to watch over the f5 square, because that would just help out the rook that's on the h file. So this is a big deal in Karyakin, in the Karyakin game. Excuse me, Karyakin game. Karyakin did without this h6 move, and they posted the knight into f8 and then e6. This is the main difference. Navara had a different approach in mind. As soon as h5 hit, he played h6. Now we have queenside castle, and he went to b8. So he's looking to reposition on c6, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not quite sure why the knight chose this path. I don't have a great answer to that, because I feel that knight to f8 is better. Getting into the e6 square is also watching over g4. Maybe he can even go into h7 to have some grip over the g5 square. If you compare the c6 square, and this is the direction he goes. He goes in the game to b8 and then into c6. And from c6, it seems like he only has one good next move, in that of d4. And can't he kind of get the same if he went to f8 and then let's just say here? Now he has d4, maybe f4, maybe g5. There must be some other idea he had in mind, but I just wanted to share that I simply don't know. I don't have an answer to why the knight, or why Navara chose to go in for b8 and c6. Maybe you can help me out with that. I don't have an answer to that one, so I don't know. Okay, he went to b8 in this game, and now we have a rook d to g1. You see what's coming. You don't go here and just keep the pawn sitting on g2. White is looking to attack the black king. Knight c6, g4. This is something that you really can't prevent either. Bishop g4, knight e3 kicks him away. So, g4, and now f6. So there's a strong grip over this g5 square, but that doesn't matter. g5, white just smashes through. It's piece sacrifice. F takes, knight takes. Why take with the knight? Well, it throws a punch. It throws a stronger punch. When the knight is recaptured, we have a recapture and black has to react. You don't necessarily have that if you're taking first with the bishop and then recapturing with the knight. This is, you compare a knight on g5 with a bishop on g5, the knight isn't throwing a punch, the bishop is. So, ending up with the bishop, that's just a general. I'm just giving you a general idea with the move sequence. You'd like to end up recapturing on the g5 square and place some restriction on black's next move. Throwing a punch on the queen, there's limited replies. Okay, so that is what we had. We had g5, f takes, knight takes. Black inserts this knight d4 move, striking at the queen, threatening to take the queen with check. So queen d1 takes, bishop to e7. So notice how this g5 move, the position is blown open here. There's a ton of attacking material. Both rooks, the queen, the bishop, the knight, the pawn, and these guys are still on their home squares. It's a pretty brutal attack. I mean, there isn't a good defense here for black after this g5 break. And this is another reason why maybe knight to f8 was a little bit better. Compare knight to f8. And knight to b8 if white is going for a similar idea. Let's say f6, g4 now. What about knight e6? Right? He's watching over g5. You can't get this move in now. You know, there's another piece on here. So, yeah, just still just kind of wondering why knight b8 and c6. But yeah, this is a really strong attack now. g4, g5 still hits. Knight d4, queen d1, bishop takes, bishop e7, and just avoid the dark square bishop exchange, threatening now h6, all sorts of things. Knight takes pawn is another one. Black defends that. Here comes h6. It's just too slow. Look at the black position, completely stripped of all defense. No pawn support anymore. Pawn takes, rook takes, queen h5. Yeah, multiple ways to win this one. Bishop e6, bishop h6, just throwing all the punches, dictating play as white from here. Bishop f7, bishop takes. You can't take the queen, why not? After bishop takes queen, we would have bishop takes f6. And we're getting the queen. Well, that's exactly what happens, though. What else is there instead of taking the queen? What do? Bishop takes here. That's mate. There's no defense from this point, so this is what black tries. Bishop takes queen, bishop takes bishop, discovered check, gets the queen back. Black hits with the fork. King b1, knight takes rook, and after bishop takes c7, black simply resigns. There's a fork at the end of this, and white's going to win one of these minor pieces. If you're curious about the computer evaluation, it's reading +7. Yeah, one of these pieces will fall next. And that's that. I mean, I don't know what more to say. Yeah, just really scratching my head some about the knight's decision to go in this direction here, b8, instead of f8 and e6. This is a really strong post for the knight, the e6 square, and much more resistance would have been put up, of course, if he was around on e6 watching over that g5 square. But maybe black just didn't appreciate this idea. Maybe black didn't see that this was an idea, this g5 break. And yeah, well, when it hit with great effect, and there was nothing that black can do. If you're curious about a little graph here of how the game played out, let me just show you here. This is from move 1 to the end of the game. You could see how it's just a growing advantage throughout, and then just, you know, the point of no return here. Yeah, solid game. Yeah, the big thing here is this knight reposition that I found instructive. Probably going to go with f8 and e6. This was a really strong idea, bringing the rooks over here, and with this g5 break, sacrificing a piece, and then the king is stripped of all defenses. So anyhow, as usual, I hope you got something out of this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.